Planning a trip to Iceland? Before you book anything, here's everything you need to know. From the best time to go, how long to stay, where to visit, and of course, some money saving tips for one of Europe's most expensive countries. Hi, my name's Rachel, and I recently went on a bucket list adventure around Iceland's Ring Road. I'm here to share all the tips I wish I'd known. So like and subscribe, and let's get into it. When to visit? So this really depends on your reason for visiting. If you're wanting to see as much of the country as you physically can, then really summer is your best bet. You have long daylight hours and the weather is pretty good, meaning that all the roads are generally accessible and you can get to whichever area you like. Also, this is a great time for whale watching and seeing puffins if that is something you want to do. Alternatively, if you're going to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, which I know a lot of people do, your best bet is between November and February. However, you need to be aware that this will make road tripping quite difficult and some areas just won't really be accessible, so your trip may look a little bit different. However, I've seen pictures of like snow and ice covered waterfalls and honestly it looks magical. Where to visit and how long do I need? So depending on how much time you have will really affect your itinerary in Iceland. So I know a lot of people do quite a short trip to Iceland, and honestly that's completely fine. You can see a lot of Iceland's highlights in a really short space of time. If you only have 3 days, that's great. You can see Reykjavík and go to a thermal pool, you can visit the Golden Circle, and you can do a day trip to the south coast. If you have a bit longer than this, 4 or 5 days, then you could maybe add on Snæfellsnes Nest Peninsula as well. If you have a week, which is the amount of time I went for, then you will be able to fit in the whole of Iceland's Ring Road, which is an amazing road trip. You get to visit all the tourist highlights and also maybe see a few things that are off the beaten track. I do, however, think 7 days is probably the minimum amount of time you need for this road trip, as it was hectic. Like we were driving a lot and it was full on days, but it was 100% worth it. If you have slightly longer, like maybe 9 or 10 days, then you could definitely take the Ring Road a little bit slower and really explore it. If you have even longer than this, like 2 weeks, that would be the absolute dream, and you could head up to the Western Fjords, which I think is definitely the least visited region in Iceland. It looks stunning and it is definitely on my bucket list for when I return to Iceland. Do you need to hire a car? So again, this is very dependent on your trip. I think if you are basing yourself in Reykjavík and you're just looking to do day trips from Reykjavík, then it's pretty easy to just book those with tour companies and do them as part of a group tour. However, if you're looking to go a little bit further afield, then I would definitely recommend a car. I think it is possible to, book some multi-day trips and do this on like a coach as part of a big group if you really are not comfortable with hiring a car or driving in a foreign country. However, Iceland is actually a pretty easy country to drive around. The speed limit everywhere is like 90 kilometers an hour, which is really not that fast. And there's just not many people around, to be honest. It's pretty nice driving conditions, I think. And we found the whole process of hiring a car pretty straightforward. So if you're thinking of doing a road trip and you're just a bit unsure, I really would recommend it. It was so much fun. What to pack? Layers, layers, layers. So if you've watched any Iceland videos, I'm sure you're aware that the weather is very unpredictable. One minute you have like wind and sideways rain hitting you in the face, and the next minute you're like stripping off because the sun came out and it's actually a really beautiful day. You just want to be able to layer up and layer down throughout the day with ease. As I mentioned, the wind can be pretty bad in Iceland and pretty cold, so make sure your coat is some sort of wind protection, and also make sure your outer layer is waterproof. And this is not just for the rain, although that was helpful. The waterfalls in that country are so powerful. I got drenched numerous times. Even my waterproof clothing didn't exactly protect me, but it helped a little bit, it helped. So I definitely would make sure your outer layer is waterproof, including some good hiking boots. With all those layers, I bet you're looking at your suitcase and thinking, whoa, that is full and I do not know if I'm going to be under the weight limit. Well, one thing you can leave behind is probably your like evening or nicer clothes. Iceland is very casual. Everyone was just around in like their hiking gear all the time. I think people are a lot more concerned about being comfortable and about being warm than they are about dressing up nicely. So unless you have a particular place in mind that you really need to dress up for, I'd just leave that stuff at home. So we move on to some money tips. First things first, I would say that you really don't need cash in Iceland. We didn't bring any, like at no point did I even see an Icelandic note. I don't know what they look like. Everywhere we went accepted card. Even when we were in a really remote area, this country is really set up for card payment. So just make sure you have a card that doesn't have any foreign transaction fees and you'll be good to go. So Iceland is a notoriously expensive country and I am a fan of budget travel. So if you're also on a budget or you just want some money saving tips, this is how much I spent in 7 days in Iceland and a few ideas of how to keep that cost down. The first category is accommodation and I spent £378 and 13 pence. So we basically spent the whole time just in hostels or in guest houses, and this is far cheaper than booking a hotel. And whilst they are like more basic than a hotel, honestly they were all really nice. They had good kitchens and coffee machines, which is a bonus, and I think the vibe is maybe a bit different to like hostels in different parts of the world. It's not really filled with just like 20-year-old backpackers. There's actually a lot of like older people there and even families on a few occasions. So if you're only really used to hotels, then I would give guest house a go. Honestly, they were all pretty good. I think we mainly just booked through booking.com. We have a discount seeing as we booked so many places through them. If traveling is something that you do fairly regularly, then if you sign up with certain websites, like booking.com, you can get money off and you don't actually have to have that many bookings to be eligible. Another really great thing about booking guest houses and hostels is that they have kitchens, and this is going to save you so much money. I think everyone knows that Iceland's food scene is expensive, so basically we just cooked for ourselves. I spent £54 and 4 pence on groceries whilst I was out there, which I mean is more than I would spend in the UK, and this was even when I was literally trying to buy, I was buying the most basic things possible. I was just looking for all the deals, what was the cheapest thing I could buy. However, I still think for a whole week eating on holiday, that's pretty good. Make sure you look out for the little pink pig, or otherwise known as bonus. I think that is widely considered the cheapest supermarket in Iceland, and we mainly shopped there. We did go to Kronan as well, which I thought was pretty good. So moving on to eating out, we only ate out once the whole time we were in Iceland. I got a soup and a beer, and then I also did get a hot chocolate at another place another day. And just those 3 items came to £31 and 24 pence, which is kind of mind-boggling, to be honest. That's quite a lot of money. I mean, I really enjoyed the soup, don't get me wrong, so I'm not upset that I spent that money, but you can just see that if you were to be paying that amount of money for every single meal in Iceland, it would start to add up very quickly. So I can only recommend cooking for yourself if doing this on a budget is something that is important to you. Next up, car hire. So as I mentioned, I went on a 7-day road trip of the ring road, so we needed a car. We just hired like a 5-seater SUV. I think this is kind of pretty standard for what most people get when they're doing the ring road. We saw a lot of them out there. Like, we weren't sure what the road situation would be like, but I think if you're doing it in summer, any car would be fine. If you're just sticking to the ring road, the roads are actually pretty good. So if there's only 2 of you and you want something smaller, then I think that would be absolutely fine. But our car came to £270 for the 7 days, which my share was £67 and 50 pence. We just used a comparison booking site and just tried to find basically one of the cheapest deals we could. We paid for an extra driver, but we didn't pay for any like extra insurance or anything. But if you are driving a car around Iceland, there is also the fuel to think about, and fuel costs in Iceland are also not that cheap. Surprise, surprise. We spent £261 and 29 pence on fuel, which my share was £65.32. So Josh is always trying to find the best petrol price that he can, so he's always looking at petrol comparison sites. This is the one we used. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. It was like pretty good, but honestly, when you're out on the east coast of Iceland, you kind of just have to fill up where you have to fill up. You don't have too much choice. Also, our car hire came with a discount at a certain brand of petrol station. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but I think that's pretty common, so just be aware of that. Maybe your car hire will also come with some fuel discount. Other things I keep in mind is just trying to keep on top of your fuel efficiency. We hired a hybrid car, which was actually amazing. It did save us a lot of money on fuel, and also the speed limit is only 90 kilometers an hour on the whole of the island, and that's actually a really good speed for fuel efficiency. So, you know, don't rush, just take your time, enjoy the scenery and save some fuel while you're at it. The final thing we spent money on was activities. This was by far our biggest expense. I spent £490 and 18 pence. Oops. Look, when I travel, I feel like activities is a thing that I don't really skimp out on. My mentality is I'm there to experience as much as I can, so I'm willing to pay for those things. However, as with everything in Iceland, it does cost quite a lot. So that included the Blue Lagoon and another thermal bath, an ice cave tour, snorkeling in Silfra, and what else did we do? Oh, whale watching. Whale watching. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad we did that. If you are going to book activities, definitely shop around. Sometimes it's cheaper to book direct and sometimes it's cheaper to book through a third party like booking website. And always check a cashback site. I don't think a lot of people realize that if you book, especially some of the third party booking websites, actually if you go through cashback sites, we use Top Cashback, but if you go through a cashback site, that you can get like 10% off your booking. And I just don't think enough people are onto that, so definitely check that out before you book any of your activities to save you a little bit of money. But like I said, you don't have to do activities. Iceland is full of so many amazing things to do for free. The waterfalls are free, the volcanic craters are free, the scenery is free and it's beautiful. But what I would say is that most of them do have parking fees. They're not too, they're fine. I think it was like most of them were between like £6 and £6.50, which is fine. My share for the week was £12.43, like absolutely fine. And that's just to kind of preserve like the parking area and all the sort of like walkways and things. So for that insane amount of beauty, like I'm happy to pay that. So overall, for 7 days on Iceland's Ring Road, I spent £1,100.79, excluding flights, which I think is okay. Like, it's more money than I would usually spend on a week away. However, to say it was Iceland, I was pleasantly surprised. And like I said, almost half of that was on activities. So you could definitely do it cheaper if you wanted to. But let me know in the comments what you think. Is that way too expensive, or is that actually a little cheaper than you were expecting? And if you want to know anything else about traveling Iceland, I actually vlogged my entire trip, so I will link that down below. So please do go check out my channel, and I hope you have the absolute best time in Iceland. The trip is amazing. So thanks so much for watching.